Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Appleton Public Library. To those here in the audience, and who knows how many are watching online, I'm Brett Christofferson with USA Today Network Wisconsin. We have a big treat here in store. I'm pleased to host tonight's event with the man of the hour, the star of the show, colleague Dan Powers. As many of you know, Dan covered the 2018 Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang, South Korea, and he was part of the USA Today Sports Images team. And I'm sure many of you saw the great photos he captured from the games, from the opening ceremonies to speed skating to figure skating to bobsled to what else did you have on there? Curling. So you were there. And of course, I think you saw many of the great images that captured or at least gave us a feeling or a slice of the life and the culture in South Korea. So first things first, if anybody here has questions for Dan, because this is an interactive show and it's much better to hear from you than certainly me, and maybe even you would agree, you. Jen Zettel, she's in the back. Jen, wave your hand to the folks here. Just step back to Jen, and we can get you on camera, and you can ask your question. She has a microphone so those watching online can hear. Also, Jen's monitoring Facebook Live, so anybody watching online, anybody has questions for Dan, please ask away. So without further ado, let's get started, and how about a round of applause for the man, Dan Powers. How about that? Well, let's get started first of all. You're already giving me instructions. Yeah. It's still going on, even though we've already started. But a little background. We had before Dan went to South Korea, we had a special Newsmakers in the Post Crescent in studio show where we sort of touched on the background of how you got the gig and how many Olympics you shot. But let's do it again for the folks that are maybe new here and new watching online. Was this your third Olympics that you shot?
Third Olympics. First Winter Olympics.
Okay, other sites were, just refresh our memories.
Beijing, China, and Rio.
Okay, so then how did you land this gig with USA Today Sports Images?
I've been taking pictures of the Packers, actually, for the Post Crescent for years, and then when we were purchased by Gannett, which owns USA Today, there was an editor there who noticed my work at the football games, and he called me up and asked me if I wanted to help on shooting a Super Bowl for them. So I was part of a team. We did the Super Bowl in Detroit, and I got lucky. I had a good day, and so for that Super Bowl, I had the front of the sports section for USA Today and the front page. And like, I don't know, a few months later, they asked me if I wanted to go to China for the Olympics, and then they've just been kind of calling every once in a while since then.
So there you go. So he ends up
all
in
because of one good day.
All because of one good day, and I'm kind of I'm curious though, because obviously there's a lot that goes into covering an Olympics games, traveling around the world. But how many more of these do you want to do? Do you want to keep going, or are you done? You ready to call it?
Yeah, I'll do as many as they want me to do. Yeah.
So there you go.
Well, Mark could attest to this too. He was there. You know, the first time I did one, they would just say it's exhausting, and I think the Summer Olympic ones for me were more exhausting. My role was a little smaller this time, but it's 3 weeks of, they say it's like shooting a Super Bowl every day for like 16 days, and one Super Bowl is exhausting. You know, it's a long day, and so by the time you're done with it, you're like, I'm never going to do this again, and then I think a week later, you're like, yeah, I'd do it again. Yeah.
Are you at that point right now?
I'd go again, yeah.
You're okay. Jet lag is worn off,
yeah, that's
clearly.
All yeah.
Well, what makes up the USA Today Sports Images team? And let's start with that and then expand to, I guess, an estimate maybe of how many photographers were there overall through all the media outlets.
Well, we had 22 photographers from all over the country, from different newspapers, and then some freelancers that they would hire to make this team. And then I think we had roughly six photo editors, and then we had a crew that was doing video as well. And I'm not really sure how many photographers overall. There had to be hundreds of them, if not, I don't know. Any idea, Mark?
When you go to an event, there could be 30.
Yeah, just at one event, and there's events going on all day long. So, so it was a big crew, and you know, we had some ailments and some injuries and stuff like that. So those photo editors, they're wonderful, because there were times where they had to fill in and actually do photos too.
You mentioned ailments. I think, Dan, didn't you kind of sprain your knee at one point?
Day 3.
A little nervous about how you were feeling?
Yeah, day 3. We talk about it later a little bit, but our cameras are all hooked up through Ethernet cords, so when we're taking photos, they're literally moving pictures live. But you have to find the cords at the different venues, and It was like stadium seating at figure skating, and I was looking under the chairs for the cord, and I stepped off the edge of the next level, but I had all that gear, on my shoulders and stuff like that. So this leg kind of, it was like an accordion, kind of squished a little, and I was fine, but the next day something was wrong. And so next thing I know, I'm doing everything on even ground and no alpine skiing or anything like that.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, good thing you avoided like a ruptured quad or something out there. But and then, of course, the great Facebook post that you had as we were all chuckling in the office was the norovirus was hot and heavy right when you arrived in South Korea. And
yeah, we got to our, like I'd say, apartment, and we had, I believe it was breakfast, and by the time we got back, there was a story going on that there were people that were sent home because of this virus, and I think 10 or 12 of them were from the cafeteria that we were eating at. So there was a little, in the back of your mind a little bit, but it was fine.
A few prayers, right, to kind of get through.
Right.
Well, technical, I think you sort of touched on it. As you can see, images playing in the background. If you have any questions about a particular image, right, Dan, just feel free to stop, and Dan can go over the computer, stop, and
go back
dissect specific moments that you see behind this. But the technical aspect, and you and I were talking about it, preparing for tonight, it's incredible. I think people don't understand how much work that these guys, the preparation that it takes to just even capture one great image. I mean, I guess take everybody through it, because you have Ethernet cables, you got to stake your spots hours in front of the event actually happening. But I mean, there's a whole incredible amount of preparation to get ready for this stuff.
It starts actually with the people that get there way before we do, and they're laying like thousands and thousands of yards of Ethernet cables. So there's actually cables, I was shooting figure skating. There's like 2 different positions, and there's a cable there where you can pop it in your camera, and you're editing, and every time you hit send, it sends a picture to an editor who's waiting for it, and they caption it and crop it and then move it on to the internet from there. Yeah, and but there, I mean, some of the places that they have this is the end of the bobsled, or Mark was doing biathlon, so there's cords literally right out in the snow and all that stuff, and so there's that initial crew that sets all that up for you, and then we have areas that we can photograph. We're kind of tethered to our cameras for certain events, and other ones you have more freedom.
Why don't you just stop the? Well, there's a basketball image there, but
I don't know how that happened.
That wasn't at the Olympics.
No.
But maybe you can kind of show some of the images you have with the technical side of things.
Sure. Let's see.
There we go. And you can kind of see, is what Dan talking about, the Ethernet cable back there, and
yeah, so. Here we go. Can you guys see that? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is speed skating, and there's just a whole slew of spots. This is my spot, and you can see the length of the cable. So it's not like you can't have your own vision of what you want to do. You can move around, but there are certain areas that are designated for photographers and areas you can't go in. Although some of the venues, if there's nobody sitting in a seat, a fan, you can go there, and then you just have to hustle back and re-plug in and send the picture from wherever your cord is. But even things like this, you have to get there. That's a little bit closer view. So if you see the cable goes right inside the camera there.
But you're essentially transmitting images
as it's happening.
As it's happening, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, this was speed skating. So you can see there's just every different color is a different, like AP or USA Today or Getty Images. That's a kind of a overall shot. So I try to get there. I probably get there a little too early. I know Mark will say we got there too early the one day, but we got our spots. So
and your spot is the second one.
Mine is the second one. There was actually someone there before me. This spot filled up a little faster than the side that Mark was on. Mark probably didn't have to show up 2 or 3 hours ahead of time that particular day, anyways. But it fills up fast. That's what it looks like shortly thereafter, and it's just solid photographers.
So take us a day in the life of a photographer shooting the Olympics. I mean, what time you getting up, and you sort of touched on when you want to get to an event, but just from start to finish, what's a day like?
Well, we usually get our assignments the night before. We have a general idea. There's like a board, you might say. So we have a few days out, and then when you get a specific request the night before. And I would say generally you'd spend a lot more time on buses and getting to places early and waiting for the event to start than the actual event. So, a 10-hour day might be shooting a 3-hour event, but you have to take a bus or sometimes 2 buses, and you have to get there early enough to get a good spot within that area. So it's a lot of hurry up and wait. But then when the time comes, you have to be kind of on your game.
And then also consider where were you staying, right? There were 2 different levels. There's like oceanside type living, and then up near the mountains, right?
Yeah, there's 2 what they call clusters, and we lived down the coastal cluster, and then there was the mountain one. And so half of the events are up in the mountains, and because of my injury, I basically stayed down there, except for bobsled. But someone who does alpine or biathlon, they're going back and forth. So it's about depending on the traffic, a 40-minute bus ride just to get to the event, and then you shoot the event, and sometimes you have to take another bus after that, from there. So
well, how long does it take to get from venue to venue then? I mean,
it depends. Like if you had to go to like the opening ceremonies, you would take a 40-minute bus ride to the mountain area, and then from there you take another half-hour, 40-minute bus ride from there. And then after the closing ceremony, when there's 2,000 journalists trying to leave at the same time, there's only one bus. Yeah, we probably waited 2 or 3, at least 2 hours afterwards just to get on a bus, the first bus to get back.
I know we have a Facebook question I'll ask in just a second, but packing clothes, I mean, how do you prepare for something like this as far as travel with gear, with clothing? I mean, you got to bundle up because it was freezing up there in the mountains, correct?
Depends on the event and the person, and like the opening ceremonies, that was really cold, but I was at the top of the stadium. It was an open stadium like Lambeau Field, and we had photographers from all different parts of the country, and so, I mean, I knew going into it was going to be one of us, that they weren't going to put the guy from Arizona up there.
They should have.
They weren't, no, that was going to So
they should have.
So I was up at the top, and that was cold because of the wind. But by halfway through it, I wasn't even wearing gloves, really. I don't know if it was my adrenaline or whatever, but it didn't seem as cold. They all thought I was nuts.
How much time did it take you to pack here? And I mean, how many?
I packed and repacked like 3 different times. But at that point, I didn't know if I was doing winter outdoor things or indoor things or a little bit of each, so you kind of have to pack for everything. And then for me, the camera equipment I like to bring on the plane with me so that no matter what, I have my tools that I need to do the job, and I can always buy clothes when I get there if something gets lost. So.
All right, well, I'm going to kick it over to Jen, and she's got a question from Facebook.
Yes, I actually have 2. Somebody else chimed in. So Kathy would like to know, do you know you have captured that moment when you snap the photo?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, when it all kind of comes together, I would say example was the gold medal for curling. I don't know that much about curling, so I was trying to pay attention to which end it was most likely going to end on, but the team, if they're losing enough, they can concede, and they can be on the other end. And so that's what happened in that case, and I had to decide, should I stay where I'm at or go over here where a lot of photographers had moved over there. But I noticed there was a couple TV guys there that were mobile, and I decided to stay where I was at and just, either I'm going to get it or not. And when it's coming together, you could see, I mean, there was the losing team here and the winning team here, and then all of a sudden this woman just kind of leaned back and was just like, yelling to the sky kind of thing. And so when is that obvious? Yeah, and you get excited. You're hoping that you get it.
All right, and then our next question is from Allison. Out of all the amazing moments you captured, what is your favorite and why?
I think we're locked in on that. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Oh boy. What and why? Tell me if this is doing the same pictures over and over again too. I don't think it is, but have you seen that one already?
No.
Okay. I don't know if I have a favorite. I think that curling one is up there. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. I actually had fun doing little multiple exposure tricks, and that was actually kind of out of, when you're shooting the same event for the 3rd day in a row, you have to try and come up with something different. And so I think a lot of us were playing around with multiple exposures and time exposures. But I think there's a couple skating photos that I had where I did a real slow shutter speed and it kind of mimicked the motion of it. And there's a couple in there that I like.
Do you have some examples maybe on your laptop that you can show? And again, it seems to be locked right now.
It is, okay. Yeah, we can, let me just...
I know you showed me some back at the office.
Yeah, let me just scroll to something here. Some of the things we were doing is like, here's an example of what they call panning. So it's like a slow shutter speed, and you're trying to show the motion so that everything's so still, and it's a trial and error. You have to do it over and over and to get one real nice one. I enjoy the images like that, and we're also trying to keep in anytime you get the rings in there, or where it says Pyeongchang in there, and just give a sense of where you're at. So if you can get those elements all to come together in one photo, that's always a nice moment. I'll find one of those slow motion ones. Sorry about that. I didn't expect this to. Little things like this. I enjoyed this picture. So this is actually my second day here, and I noticed the rings, and they were warming up. And I did a photo where there was 2 skaters in there, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be there another day, and I got to go back. So it was kind of nice because I had a second chance at making the picture I did before a little bit better. And this is what a slow shutter speed to kind of let the feel of the skating motion. So that's one of my favorites, I'd say. And I'll show you one really. Am I still on track with the question? You know it's going to be the last one, probably. Okay, here's 3 examples right here. So that sort of thing. Kind of cool. So I like those. Those are at 1/8 of a second. So I know there's some photographers here in the crowd. They know what that is, but that's you get a little bit of motion. You're kind of moving with the subject to kind of keep that flow going, and then you're hoping that it doesn't get too weird where you can't tell what it is. And it's a kind of a fine line, but I enjoyed a few of the ones that I got like that, just because I don't do that much of that here at home, at the high school events and that sort of thing.
So how much lessons are you given to really shoot what you want, be as creative as you can be, as artistic as you can be, or are the editors giving you hard instructions on, you got to shoot this and this is what we want?
No hard instructions, but I didn't do a lot of the slow motion stuff with figure skating because one of the important things with figure skating is if somebody falls, you need to show that moment because it's a big deal. And I did it a little more sparingly with that because I did not want to be the guy who has the artsy, swirly picture when the big story is that this person who's supposed to win a goal just fell and they lost the goal. So if someone was doing their routine and it was going really, really well, and I had a sense like, okay, they're at least halfway through it, then I would mess around with that a little bit. But there was really no rules. So you needed to capture news-telling moments, and then after that, you could play around a little bit.
All right, I'm going to go back to Jen. Remember, anybody here who has questions, why don't you just, if you can go back to Jen, then we can get you on the microphone so those can hear you online. Don't be shy. It's okay. Don't
It's a
be
short
shy.
walk.
It's
I'll
an
catch
easy
you
walk right
after.
down by Jen.
So we had another question from David on Facebook, and he was wondering if you can talk about some of the food you got to eat while you were over there.
Yeah,
we're going to touch on that in a little while, but go ahead.
Okay. The food was, for the actual media food, was pretty standard cafe kind of stuff. But this trip we did get to go into town fairly often and try some of the things. And I know Mark and I went to a couple places where you would basically point at a picture and say, this is what you like. And you kind of knew what it was. Sometimes the first night I didn't know what it was. That little place that we were at. But then after that, it was, we actually had a lunch where it was a real traditional type of food. And the pictures in it kind of looked like it was more of a sushi, raw food situation. And they also had pizzas. So we went, and the lady kept telling us, this is the best, this is the best. And we didn't listen to her, and we had our pizzas, which were fine, But and then until another group came in while we were finishing up, and they ordered those things, and it looked fantastic because they took all that food and then they put it in this pot with this sort of, I don't know what the liquid is that they used, and it came to a boil. It was like a stew. And we agreed we should have listened to her from the beginning. Yeah. But the food was very good. I ate a lot of bulgogi.
What's that?
It's like rice and beef and noodles. And
What about that? We were talking about, you ate some sort of dessert. You were telling me about
yeah,
that.
that was the best dessert I've ever had in my life. It was at the market, and it was like a thick pancake, I guess you'd say, with melted mozzarella cheese and honey and cinnamon in a kind of like steaming thing. Yeah. And in the market there'd be a few people at each little restaurant, and this place had a line just going. It's probably the best dessert I've ever had.
Well, that's something I would try, but what was the one that you said, though, that is actually still alive as you're swallowing it? Because that's something I wouldn't try.
That was one of our friends who stayed an extra week, had friends that live in Seoul, and they were bringing him to traditional places, and I guess it's like a raw beef kind of a thing, and then they take a baby octopus, and they cut it up and they mix it in there, and there's a little video of his meal just moving, and I guess you eat it and the thing fights as it's going down. Yeah, we didn't get anywhere near that brave. No, pretty basic food for us.
Maybe we should talk more about the images then
Yeah.
instead, right? I don't know if you want to get them cranking again so folks
Yeah,
can,
let's see if it'll work this time or not.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a question, she's waiting for you.
Yeah.
Or if you want to yell it out, she can.
Oh,
They got the laptop. She's going to type it into the ask through face. She's cheating. She's cheating.
That works too.
But as you're doing that, back to the technical part of things, Dan. When you say they're editing as it happens, but I mean, are they actually editing the images you're taking? There's an editor that's going through every one of your images, or are you at least picking what you think?
We're editing our own,
and then sending it.
So I'll narrow it down. Figure skating is a good example where the skater will be announced, and we'll take a picture of the screen that has a spelling of their name and everything, and I'll send that picture. So they know every picture after that is of this person. And I'll just shoot like I normally would shoot, and then I've got a real small window before they're done judging, and then the next skater starts. And then, depending on how heavy-handed you are, I go in reverse, and anything that looks somewhat good to me, I just hit send, and then they're on the other end.
How many images do you think you shot over there?
My heaviest day was speed skating, and I did 8,500 frames.
Wow.
Yeah, it's too many. I didn't send them that many because they would have killed me, but I shot that many.
So that was just one day. I mean, what are you thinking? Like, how many of you were there? 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, that was just one. Had to be, I mean, multiple thousands of photos.
Hundreds of thousands? Would
Maybe.
that make sense, Mark?
Maybe not quite that many, but
Well, you're going 8,500 on one
85.
day.
I would say on average, maybe 5,000 pictures per event.
It was actually, I would have been interested to shut a count at the beginning.
Yes.
Because the cameras keep track of how many frames are on them for maintenance purposes.
Yes.
That would have been interesting.
Or I don't know why this isn't going. Danny, would you have any idea?
He's asking you, Danny, any idea why it's... Okay.
Oh, I know why. No, I know why. I got it.
Well, in the meantime, while you fix that, I think we've got somebody
fixed.
who's going to go on camera. We know Julie. And Jen, what do you have?
All right, Julie's going to ask a question today.
All right, we're good.
Well, Dan, you had written a lot of pieces for the Post-Crescent, and you mentioned the bobsled event where that person jumped in your way.
Yes.
And I know how frustrating that is. Or were there any other moments over there? You got the best, but the one where you wish you would have had a different angle to get that moment at a certain event? Like the bobsled one, all of a sudden that guy popped in your way.
Yeah, the bobsled one, that was a big one. I'm trying to think if there's anything that just really... There was a couple times where I was, when you're not supposed to, be checking something just to make sure it was going well, and we call it chimping, where you're looking at the back of the camera, and something happened, because you could hear the crowd. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was bad because I heard a big ooh, and I'm looking at my camera. So, I was pretty focused. So I think the things that happened in front of me, I managed to get. I don't remember completely falling on my face. I mean, I think there was some where I wish I would have picked a different angle. Like curling, you can be at 8 different positions, and I chose to be over here, and I really wish I would have been over here. So yeah, that happened fairly often. There's a certain risk you take by going here for a while and not there. So that does happen, yeah. Probably.
Chimping, yeah. What's chimping?
Because I think we look at the back camera and we go, ooh, 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 right? Yeah. Well, if it's a good moment, yeah.
Well, we can piggyback actually into the competition part of it, and then we'll circle back on some other things. But you showed me some images, as Julie mentioned too, where you're shooting, and every frame there's a person getting in your way. So there's a lot of show it. But there's a lot of jockeying going on, and it gets pretty competitive, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's wherever you go, there's what we call pool photographers, and they are, in this case, Getty. They're hired by the Olympics, and so they have a little bit better access, or they don't have to. They can come at the last second and take their spot. And then, like I said before, those cords are really long, so we can go anywhere in this general area, and so you get there, really early. So the competition, everyone's pretty cool with each other. The agreement for the bobsled thing was that everyone would be against this fence, and the guys who were the pool guys, because they're right up front, would kneel or sit, and that way, because if this guy leans out, then the second guy leans out, and I was the third guy, so I had to lean out a little bit because I can't not have a photo. It's just that's not an option. And so I know everyone behind me, it's getting worse and worse and worse. And I have a colleague who's all the way up at the end because the bobsled, when they hit the brakes, it kind of goes up. And he's getting them as they're with a long telephoto lens to bring them up close. And it just got worse and worse for him too. So for the most part, it was good. There was a couple days where it was bad. I could show you how it progressed if you want. And I know why this is working now, so we're there.
Which is another reason why, as you showed us with the speed skating, why you had to get there hours in advance, right, to get the best spot.
Yeah, because you have our area, but still there's better portions of that area than others. So here, like this is Eric Seals. He's with the Detroit Free Press, and he's at the end of it. So he has a big telephoto lens looking at the bobsledder as they're coming this way towards him.
And that's hours before.
Yeah, this is like 3 hours or 2 hours before the event. We got up there like 3 hours before, and then we went out about 2 hours before. So you're just killing time, basically. But you can see there's a lot of things that, they set up a long time. They want you to get good photos, but there's a lot of obstacles. I mean, this is right where they come in at the end and they get out of the sled. And you can see there's a TV person, there's volunteers, then there'll be coaches coming in, all in a split second. You're trying to get a picture. There's a TV guy there, a coach. This was a nice moment where they're clutching arms after they came across. I think they knew they were going to get the bronze. And I've got a volunteer on one side, and I have the TV guy in the background, and she's smiling. I just want them to all go away. So here's the spot. You can see this photographer's kind of leaning in. And from my angle, I should not be here because this is too close to this edge. But I got two people in front of me, and I'm not naming names. And it's starting to get worse because I know that they're going to start to react. And so it's coming out, and I'm really getting not happy, But I was able to get this because they got out and they just jumped, in each other's arms. So I was able to get a reaction photo. And then again, now they're taking away the sled, and I'm trying to get the reaction to it. And then I'm fighting not fighting, but TV's there. So I ended up getting that, and that's just a crop version of that. And then they won the gold, and so they're starting to react. They know, that they did it. But that is actually cropped down from that. And that's just out of necessity. I would normally be, tighter, but there's just so many. This guy's doing this again. And so, and then this is the German
frustrated,
team.
Yeah. And getting it again, aren't you?
Yeah, and the German coaches, they're supposed to be there, and they're supposed to enjoy the moment and everything, but, for us, we're like, but you're in our way, And so they would come out so fast that they wouldn't even get out of their sled, and they'd be mobbed. And then, of course, I still have this guy. And so, there goes my picture. And, there's a little bit of a picture there. But that's the picture I ended up getting at the end. Because they got out and they turned to the crowd, and their family and friends are out there. And we have other photographers. We had Eric all the way down there. We have another photographer out by the families. So if I don't get it, they should get it from that angle.
Talk about how you work together with other photographers, because everyone needs to get the same shot. Talk about main from seeing that.
Oh yeah, on the opposite side. So I did bobsledding the next day, and I was shooting when they start, they run off. And it was a day where only the pool photographers were supposed to be there, but I kind of sweet-talked my way in, I guess you might say, and the pool photographer showed up after me, and her name is May, she's from Singapore, and that was just the opposite. So even though she had the right to be there, she said, I can go behind you, you were here first, and let's just practice. So we literally practiced, leaning out, and my name tag, I don't go by Daniel, except for maybe my mom, and she saw it says Daniel on there, and so it was Daniel. And so we lined up, and I said, is this okay? She said, okay, Daniel? I go, okay. And I go back a little bit, and then it worked out really good. And, she's, it got cold that day, and so she's, after the sleds are going by, we worked out as a team. We're shooting for competitors, but that's the way it's supposed to work, and it worked out great. And we're Facebook friends now, and
But her fingers.
Her fingers, yeah. She's from Singapore, and this is like while the races are going on, I hear this, Daniel, I can't feel my fingers anymore, Daniel. He goes, the lowest it gets is 85 in Singapore, And so she was a blast to work with. She was just the opposite. Yeah. I'll take a May over the other guy any day.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
The bobsled guy. I'm going to kick it back to Jen. She's raising her hand. It looks like she's got something else online.
All right, whenever Rosie's ready. So Kathy on Facebook would like to know, on average, how many shots do you take before you get one that you like? Good one that you want to send.
They want numbers.
There's no real method to that. I mean, I think no matter what you shoot, we've been to Packer games where there's a touchdown happens, and it's your favorite shot, and it's the first quarter, and it's right away, and you go through a whole game, you don't get anything until the end of the game. So I had days here where my favorite picture of the day came within a couple hundred pictures, and then I had some where it was almost the end of the day before I really got anything I really liked. I was hoping that after each event, if I could get 4 or 5 pictures from an event that I really liked, I'd be happy with that.
Well, let's piggyback, or let's carry on the conversation through the getting the great shot. We talked about it again at the office. There's a lot of research involved. Let's say, like the figure skating story you're telling me about, how you really tapped into
Bob Deutsch.
Yeah, who's shot figure skating for years, I guess, is
Yeah.
considered a great figure skating photographer. You had to shoot figure skating. You just asked him question after question. So just kind of explain to everybody here all that goes into that, and just so you're prepared with a specific event.
I think we all read up a little bit on what you're going to be doing, whether it's way ahead of time or the night before, just to kind of understand the sport. I think the more you understand it, the better you have a chance of getting a good picture. And in this case, we had more than one photographer at a lot of the events. We had what we called anchor photographers. And so Bob Deutsch, he's a USA Today staff photographer, and he's done 17 Olympics. And he does, at least in the most recent years, mainly figure skating. And in the Summer Olympics, he's the gymnastics guy. He's really good at gymnastics. And so he's the anchor. So, I mean, that's all he shoots. He might help out with speed skating. They might flip it for a day, but basically he does the one event the whole time. So when you know that you're going to be hanging with that guy, he's the main guy, and then there's a second position. And it doesn't mean that the pictures that you're going to get from your position are any less worthy. It's just that he's the guy that they're counting on, and then you're. So I mean, I soak it up like a sponge. I mean, I just ask him questions, and he's very good about it. And he told me that he'll answer a certain amount of questions, and then he cuts me off because he wants me to have my own vision and not give me all the answers, which I appreciate. So there's certain little things like I didn't know, and it may be common knowledge of a lot of photographers, but it wasn't to me, that during the warm-up period, the skaters will actually, wherever they're doing the harder tricks, they'll do it in the same spot on the ice as during the program. And so I would just watch the Americans, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of a cool jump, that's kind of cool, but that one's really cool. And that's when they're in the upper right corner, and then I would just try to remember that. And we're shooting every skater, so by the time they come up, I might forget, but it gives me a better chance of getting a better picture. There's one where the girl does like a spin right in the rings, and so I knew after a certain jump that she was going to go there, so I just kind of lined up and waited for her to come so that I knew I didn't cut off any of the rings for that picture.
And I asked you this too, as far as getting those photos with the rings. Mm-hmm. You're not just focused on the rings waiting for the athlete to come flying through, right? I mean, you're on the athlete the whole time.
You're on the athlete, and then you're watching we shoot like in layers, so you're watching the action of the athlete, but you're also watching what's in the background. And so you're trying to, and you know how fast it goes with skating, they're just zipping by. I kind of wish one would just come up right now. So you're trying to compose it so you get the rings in the right spot and the athlete doing something physically interesting at the same time. And sometimes you're doing that with that panning effect, that blurring, so you add that element to it, and you know, and it's little things like that. You're trying to line that up. I like that she's looking at where it says Pyeongchang. You know, it looks like that anyways. Yeah, Eric's going to kill me for showing you that. Yeah, so it's you're constantly thinking about backgrounds. Curling is really hard because there might be 3 or 4 matches going on at the same time. And so right when you think you have a nice moment, someone walks in front because they're heading back to the other end, and there's a lot of busy backgrounds and that sort of thing.
And again, to show everybody how hard it is to get these images, talk about you didn't get to do this, but the alpine skiing events or the downhill skiing events, photographers are actually skiing, right? They're on skis to try to get these images.
Yeah, we had, oh, that's the ring one. I just thought it was real, you know, delicate looking. It was kind of cool to get the rings in there. Yeah, for the alpine, we had a photographer who, he ended up getting sick actually, but he is like an expert level skier, and he would ski down to these positions and then have to put crampons on, which are those big spikes, so that he basically locked himself in. And he needed to be a certain skiing level to get there. So he's not only skiing there, but he's got 70, 80 pounds worth of gear on his back, and then he's unpacking it all and then shooting, and then so I had it easy.
I was going to say, something to shoot for your next Winter Olympics.
No.
Get to be
Somehow
expert
getting
level.
stuck for the indoor events wasn't all that bad. I think about it that way. But he got sick, really sick. He went to the hospital twice, and I think he only shot a few days, and he was out for the whole time. And so we had to make adjustments. And there was an editor who was a good skier too, Michael, and I believe he stepped in for some of that and shifted gears. And so, because you get injuries and you get illnesses at all these, and everyone kind of helps each other out.
Now, you didn't get to pick your events, right? Those were assigned to you.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Do you wish, is there any event that you wish you could have checked out? Or?
Actually, they asked us ahead of time if there's anything we had an interest in. And the first 2 Olympics, I was a new guy, so I was like, nope, I'm good. And I like variety. I don't want to sit at one thing the whole time. I would just get bored. And so they were just sending me, I would just fill in, you know, someone can't do this because they're sick, I'll do it, you know, that kind of thing. And this time I thought, well, it's my 3rd one, maybe I'll just at least mention something. And I really wanted to do figure skating and some sort of speed skating. Probably the short track would have been ideal, but and my first 3 days they had me doing both, so I was happy with that.
How long did it take you to kind of get acclimated to your surroundings? I mean, we'll talk about the travel in a second, so don't really touch on that, but okay. I mean, because you were like, you had to go.
Well, we got there, and the next morning we had to meet up in the main press center where our offices were, and we have do you want me to talk about the computers, or the cameras getting programmed?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we had a day where you have to bring all your cameras, and they change the software on them. That's for their system. And it's a very, very long day. And what you try to do after that is, you're probably 10 or 12 hours into the day after that, is to go visit the different venues and kind of see where our cords are and what the light is like, all these different things. So there's a lot involved with getting prepped for that. You can get distracted though, because I had to get a little sticker that got me on the roof of the stadium for the game, for the opening ceremonies. And so I missed out on my day of checking out venues. And so that can be a little hectic. If you haven't been there, you haven't have a chance to check it out, and you're going there and you're shooting the event, you have to get there, you have to figure out the bus systems. Once you get it down, then I'd say like 2 or 3 days into it when you've got the buses down. If you get the buses down, you're gold.
Well, not at this Olympics, but the summer games in Rio, where you were at that, though. It's a little different atmosphere over there. You were basically chained to your gear, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
there's a lot of theft. Yeah. So in Rio, I spent half my time trying to not get my equipment stolen, and I'm not even exaggerating. There were like people who got $40,000-$50,000 worth of stuff stolen, and this place was just the opposite. It was very, I mean, you got to be smart about it. I'm just going to lay your stuff out there, but you could focus on your job a lot easier.
Well, let's talk about South Korea and see we're about. We'll start winding down. I know snow is going to hit pretty soon, so we don't want everybody to be trapped here. And so, last call for questions online. Jen, you're watching, and anybody here? Anybody has some questions? Oh, why don't you go back and Jen can. It's so the folks can hear you online. That's kind of the main reason. Otherwise, it gets real quiet. But
I don't bite. I promise.
This is casual. Let's get him on there real quick. I know you know
right
this guy.
there.
You know him well.
I know him very well.
You've got all these pictures and they're all great. So one individual picture, how many slides or how many takes are you taking? The camera's just a whack and a go?
Oh, to get one photo?
Yeah. I mean, like all of these are great photos, but how many clicks is that camera?
That was
going?
one. I would say for like a moment, let's see if we're in the market here, but let's say someone going up and spinning, in figure skating, I'd probably take about 5 pictures of that. And I'm just trying to time it that when I'm hitting it, when they hit that peak moment, that I'm getting it. And thankfully, like something like that, probably just 4 or 5 pictures. That's the one I was telling you about where it all kind of came together. And that was only probably about 5 or 6 pictures there. Same thing with that. It's just a quick little burst.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
But yeah, traveling to South Korea.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about being in the country and the culture and the atmosphere and that sort of thing. But it was a long plane ride. Why don't you tell everybody how long you were stuck flying over there?
Well, we went from Milwaukee to Detroit, which was short, and then our flight from Detroit to Seoul was about just shy of 15 hours, I think it was.
15 hours on a plane. How's that sound?
Then when we got there, we had to get on a train, and that was another. Well, once you got your luggage and you do all the normal stuff like you do when you get to the airport, we had about a 2.5 or 3 hour train ride, and then when we got off the train, we had to find a bus to get us to our housing. And at the very last second, Mark and I were traveling together. We got disconnected because we didn't have enough room. And so we got to where we were supposed to check in and everything like that. And, I thought there was no Mark, but evidently Mark was there, but he was at a different spot from where we were. But we couldn't communicate that with the folks that drove us. And so we were calling back and forth. And it was an all day, it was hours and hours and hours.
It's funny because when you first arrived in Seoul, I was in the office that morning. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was Seoul. Maybe you were in Pyeongchang already. I don't know, but you sent me an IM. And
I don't even remember.
No. First question he asked me goes, "What time is it over there?"
Oh, yeah.
I said, "It's 10 a.m. on Tuesday. What is it over there?" "Oh, it's Wednesday." So he was already a day. What was it, like 14 hours in front of us or something like that, or 13?
And it was about the same coming back. We tried to leave. We didn't do this closing ceremony because we had a flight early the next morning. And so we actually left the night before at about, we both shot an event, and then we finished packing, and then we got, the reverse order of all that, and we got to the airport, and we thought we were going to have like this lounge thing that we could stay at, and we found out that we were going to be sitting for about 7 hours, I think it was, on the benches in the first airport. And then the second airport, we were in Tokyo. That was great because they had a Delta lounge that we could hang out with and get a shower and kind of reboot, you might say. But it was still a long visit.
And you said, 4 movies on that first flight, that 15-hour flight?
4 movies on the first one going out, and then 2 on the way back. And Mark was smarter than me. I don't think he ever got up. I think he slept all the way on the way back on that flight, missed the meals and everything.
So how long did it take you when you got back here to sort of...
I stayed at my parents' house when I got back, and I slept for about 15 hours. And then another long day of sleeping when I got back here. And I think it took me maybe 3-4 days to really get back on track.
And I'm sure you took your wife out to dinner. And
yeah. She's ready to go. I said, Margarita, let's go.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go back to Jen. She's got another question.
Yep. Karen on Facebook wants to know if you got to meet any of the athletes.
Like
any of the athletes.
The Hamilton guy with the mustache.
No, this time I did not. I did send out a tweet when the curling team won to get into the gold.
The U.S. curling team.
Yeah, U.S. men's, to Matt Hamilton, and I was quite surprised that he answered the tweet at 3 in the morning for him, because I figured, you have to compete? I mean, I know I am up, but no, I didn't meet any of the athletes this time. I did, when in Beijing, I got to, the girl who won the gold for fencing, we ended up riding in an elevator together, and I got to hold the medal and all that stuff. And then I met the gentleman from Thailand who won the gold in boxing and on the Great Wall of China, and he wanted everybody to hold his medal, so we got pictures of holding his medal. And, so that was cool, but not this time. The closest I got was I was having dinner after shooting figure skating, and the table next to us, I don't know if you know who Scott Hamilton is, but he was eating next to us, but we left him alone. So,
Very good.
so no.
So well, let's end it with talking about the culture, the folks over there, the people of South Korea. What was it like? Obviously, that part of the world, there's some tension going on, certainly with North Korea, but it seemed like they behaved. And so what was it like over there?
Everyone was wonderful. I mean, I would go back again in a heartbeat. Very friendly, very accommodating, and seemed to always have smiles. The market was great. Everyone, I think they liked that we were visiting, and they got a kick out of. There was some ladies probably in their 80s or 90s eating lunch, and they were selling fish and all that stuff. And 3 of us were walking by, and they offered us their lunch. Didn't speak English, and we all like politely declined because it was moving. You know, it was just not. It was just a little, you know. And they just, I mean, we all just laughed. They thought it was so funny that it just wasn't for us. You know. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
And I mean, there's some images from what you saw on TV. It looked like a beautiful country, a beautiful city.
The ocean was really neat to visit. Rio, I never got to do anything. It was just kind of all business. But this one, I would say 3 different days. We had about a half a day to kind of explore a little bit, which was nice.
So what's next? I mean, the games, I see what Beijing's got one, another game's
Beijing
coming
is
up.
the next winter one.
And then Tokyo's got one as well, right?
Next summer.
Summer. So
yeah. I hope to make it to Tokyo.
well, you were there already. You had a layover.
Yeah,
so
but not just sleeping on a bench in the airport. I hope I could do better than that. You know, Eric Seals, he's at the Detroit Free Press, and he said that you know, every day that you're there is like a rehearsal. It's a tryout. So you're just trying to do your best, so that you hope that you bring you back another time, and you just do your best, and hopefully you get a phone call, and so just wait and see, I guess.
Prefer summer games over winter games, or?
I like summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because.
For me, they were just, and again, I only did 4 or 5 different events, and I did a lot more events at the summer ones, but it was a little more intense. I thought, you know, the athletes, and that could have just been the ones that I was at, but I just thought it was for me a little more thrilling than the winter ones. They're both great, but.
Last one, so with all the 3 Olympics, right? You said, and a number of Super Bowls, and I mean, tons of Packer games we all know about. But I mean, where is the Olympics at the top of the mountain for you as far as assignments?
For sports photography, yeah. I'd give up 2 or 3 Super Bowls to do 1 Olympics, I'd say. Yeah, it's just nonstop, and I like the. There's just no letdown. You know, you're doing this thing, you can sleep for a little bit, and the next day you're doing it. You know, you're back right into it, and it's really cool. It's a very patriotic feeling, no matter what country it is. You know, everyone's there getting along for the most part.
Well, we won't say that story that you shared privately. So they didn't always get along.
Yeah.
The cool thing about Dan as we wrap up is that he's covering the Olympics one day, and then I come back in the office, and there you are doing a girls' sectional basketball game, high school, and it's just back to the grind. So you get at the top of the sports mountain, and
no, I had just as much fun.
Back to the high school level. So, all right, how about a round of applause for Dan Powers? And with that, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks to everybody who attended. You can stick around and chat with Dan a little bit, ask him some more questions off camera, right? So you don't have to worry about that. And everybody, thanks for watching online, and thanks for being here again. Take care and stay safe out there with all the snow.
Thanks. Oh.